I need to tell you about something that happened a few years ago. This isn't your typical ghost story, but it's about something far more unsettling. Because it felt so real, yet so impossible, that it still haunts me to this day. It all started when my grandparents passed away, and we inherited their old farmhouse in the countryside. You know, the type in ancient property, passed down through generations, filled with dust, forgotten clutter, and countless memories. My parents decided to sell it, so my job was to clear everything out and get the house ready for potential buyers. It was summer, and I had the whole break to do it. The first month was a battle with sentimentality. Every drawer, every box, every old book was a journey through time. I sifted through piles of yellowed letters, old clothes, souvenirs from trips I'd never even heard about. The deeper I went into that house, the more I felt its history, its very breath. There was a specific scent to it, a mix of old wood, dampness, and something that always reminded me of my grandparents. The one thing that always intrigued me, even fascinated me, was a specific room upstairs. It was at the very end of the hallway, past the bathroom. It was always locked. My grandparents, if they ever mentioned it, would say it was the room for things waiting, or a place for clutter that needs to be sorted through someday. No one ever went in there when I was around, nor did I ever see my parents go in there. It was like a forbidden zone. When the time finally came to get inside, the key was nowhere to be found. I searched the entire house. Every possible place my grandparents might have kept keys: in drawers, under flower pots, in old trinket boxes. Nothing. I was genuinely frustrated, but something told me not to give up. Finally, after hours of searching and almost giving up, I found it, under a loose floorboard in the kitchen, right against the wall. An old, rusted, heavy key that just screamed mystery. To my surprise, it fit perfectly. My heart pounded like crazy as I turned the key in the lock. The old mechanism groaned loudly in the silence of the house. I imagined what I'd find inside: piles of old furniture, dusty boxes of porcelain, maybe some forgotten treasures from my grandparents. You know that scene from movies where you open something old and dust just billows out? That's exactly what I expected. I opened the door, and there was nothing. The room was completely, utterly empty. Not a single piece of furniture, not a box, not even a trinket. What's more, there was absolutely no dust, which was absurd because the rest of the house was covered in a thick layer. The walls looked freshly painted, the floor gleamed with cleanliness, as if someone had just finished renovating it. It was like stepping into another dimension. I was even surprised that the window in this room was crystal clear, with no cobwebs. I stood there, mouth agape, utterly bewildered. I ran downstairs and immediately called my parents. Mom, Dad, what's with that room upstairs? The one that was always locked? My parents were just as surprised as I was. Neither of them had ever heard of it. They said the whole house only had 3 bedrooms and a bathroom upstairs. This room should have been just a wall. It was impossible. I felt like something was fundamentally wrong. I went back upstairs. I started examining the walls meticulously, inch by inch. They were smooth, with no cracks, no signs of bricked-up doorways or windows. Nothing to suggest this room could have ever been anything else. But when I gently knocked on one of them, the sound was different. More hollow, dull, as if there was space behind it, not solid brick. I felt like I had to investigate. It was stronger than me. I drove to the hardware store, bought a hammer, a chisel, and other tools. My parents were worried. They thought I was losing my mind. They kept asking what I was doing. I told them I had to do it, that I felt there was something more there, that this room, it just didn't make sense. When I started carefully chipping away at that wall, it turned out that behind it was another space. Not a room, but a long, narrow, dark alcove. It was deep enough for me to fit my entire arm inside. It didn't smell musty, just of dry wood and some strange Swedish scent that I couldn't identify. The light from the hallway didn't reach it at all. I used my phone's flashlight. Finally, deep within this niche lay an old wooden chest, and next to it, a small wooden table. On it, a thick leather-bound journal. Beside it, a small empty inkwell, and an old-fashioned pen. The whole setup looked like it had been deliberately placed there and left. It was pristine, as if untouched for decades. I pulled them out, my hands trembling slightly. I opened the journal. On the very first page, in tiny, elegant handwriting, it read, "Journal of Observations, year 1943. My heart sank. In 1943, my grandparents were still children. Could this have been the diary of someone hiding in the house during the war? Or someone else who lived here?" The subsequent pages were filled with mundane notes about the weather. What was happening in the village, planes flying overhead. But then, about a third of the way through, the notes became stranger. They started to describe quiet, unexplainable sounds coming from behind the walls, odd shadows flitting at night, whispering voices that seemed to call out a name, Eliza. The writer kept emphasizing how these things were always just at the edge of his vision, always disappearing when he tried to focus on them. Then, more disturbing entries appeared. He began to mention them, writing that he saw them only out of the corner of his eye, always vanishing when he looked directly. Then crude drawings started appearing, unsettling sketches of thin, tall figures, indistinct, almost childlike, but with unnaturally long limbs and strange blank faces. With each successive entry, the tone became increasingly paranoid, desperate, and the handwriting less legible, more frantic. The ink smudged in places, as if the writer was shaking. The last entry was short and chillingly abrupt. "They came for Eliza. I hear them downstairs. I can't stop them. The door is opening." The journal cut off in mid-sentence, leaving the fate of both the writer and Eliza unknown. Nowhere in the previous entries was there any mention of who Eliza was. Was she a child, a sister, a hidden companion? At this point, despite the shock, I felt a deep, creeping chill. I thought about my grandfather. Could he have known about this? Could he have even written it? I called my parents again, asking if they had any distant cousin, an aunt, a relative named Eliza. They had never heard of anyone like that in our family history. I took the journal and the rest of the items home, planning to spend days poring over it. The next day, when I returned to the old house to finish the last bit of cleaning, something truly inexplicable happened. That small room, the one I had just opened and explored, was locked again, keyed. But this time, the key wasn't under a floorboard. It was lying on the doormat in front of the door. I picked it up, my hands shaking. I checked if it was the same key I'd found in the kitchen. It was identical. This was something my rational mind absolutely could not comprehend. Had I somehow closed it wrong? But I had taken the key with me. Had someone been there while I was back at my own house? But who, and why? And why would they relock it and leave the key? Most disturbingly, why was that room originally hidden? Why was that journal placed there? And who was the mysterious Eliza? The house was sold a few months later. I never told the new owners about the hidden room or the journal. To this day, every single time I think about that strange, empty room, about the journal and those unsettling drawings, and about that key, I get a shiver down my spine. I never found out who Elisa was, nor what exactly happened in 1943, but I know, with absolute certainty, that hidden within that house was a far greater, darker mystery than anyone could have ever suspected. And sometimes, late at night, I wonder if it's still there, waiting,